Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It is the Monday show with me, Andrew Musgrove, and our Newcastle United editor, Aaron Stokes. Hope you guys are all doing well. We're coming to you live on YouTube and Facebook, so give a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and share the video across your social media channels if you'd be so kind. And if you're listening later on the audio channel, your support is greatly appreciated. As always, please leave us a rating and review if you haven't had the chance to do so already. No football this weekend for Newcastle United. They had a free weekend. Of course, they are back in action against Crystal Palace in midweek before Sheffield United, the visitors to St James's Park on Saturday. But with no football being played over the weekend, me and Aaron are going to bring you a show that we've talked about doing for quite a while. And we're going to look through the other 19 clubs in the Premier League and pick realistic transfer targets to bring to St James's Park this summer. Now, of course, Newcastle United are not going to sign 19 players in the summer before anyone jumps in. And the key point is realistic. We're not going for your Haalands because, quite frankly, I've got more chance of pulling on the black and white shirt than he has. I think we've spoken about, like I said, Aaron, doing this before, and it's really important, I think, just to get the point across that both of us agree upon, is that just because you're potentially signing players from a relegated side or a team that's survived on the last day of the season, it doesn't mean they're not good players.
100%. I mean, I've got a list here absolutely brimming with players that I'd love to see at Newcastle United, and a lot of them are currently situated in the bottom half. I will say, though, and I just want to put it out, I don't want to get people's hopes up too high. I feel like the amount of effort I've put into this one compared to the one that I put in a couple of weeks ago, the Dream 11, is vastly different, but I still think that we've got hopefully 38 good options here to go through.
Yeah, and we want you guys who are watching live to get involved. Let us know if you agree with the names we put forward. Let us know which one you would pick, and let us know if we haven't picked the right player from the relevant teams. You had a good weekend?
Yeah, good weekend. It feels weirdly a little bit like an international break, doesn't it? Because we've just had zero Newcastle United football, and I can't wait for Wednesday now.
It does, but I also feel it feels like Newcastle United have played in a certain way and have been let down by them after yesterday's FA Cup tie between Coventry and Manchester United. I'm going to hedge my bet and say I wasn't the only Newcastle United fan that jumped off the sofa in utter delight when that goal went in the back there, only to be cruelly but correctly ruled off.
I did wonder whether we were going to have an hour podcast today. This one was going to get scrapped and it was just going to be you talking about your dislike of Manchester United for 60 minutes.
Yeah, well, I've already done that. You can go back and listen to it on the audio channel. But I mean, fantastic cup tie. I just got in from my daughter's first ever attended first birthday party with all our little baby pals, and you've seen nothing, Aaron. The chaos that was there in a room of about 20 babies and loads of sensory toys, flashing lights. It's a thing that will keep you awake at night. Yeah, utter chaos.
I can imagine.
To get back in and watch that utter chaos of a cup tie was wonderful.
True, but I was a bit wounded because I watched the first half and saw Manchester United go 2-0 up, and then I just sort of wandered away from the laptop and didn't watch it, and then came back in the room about an hour later and I thought, hang on, I can hear the commentator here. There's no way this game could still be going on. And it turns out I looked at the screen and it was 3-3 and it was midway through extra time. But you're absolutely right, you know. The correct decision to rule that Coventry goal out, as heartbreaking as it is. And yeah, I mean, there's no look like Manchester United look, is there? So jammed.
Oh, the most lucky team in just the entirety of football, I think. Always awful, and yet always picking up the results. And all I could think about as well was just imagine if Newcastle had played them this weekend. That game that was meant to be played yesterday went ahead. Newcastle would have battered them, I think, and we wouldn't be so wary of looking ahead to a Europa League
campaign. We've still got that to come, haven't we?
We have.
We've still got that.
We have. Just explain to our listeners, firstly, though, the kind of situation now with the European spots, Man United into the final of the FA Cup. I am sick of trying to get my head around it. It's probably a lot simpler than I'm making it out to be. So what now do we need to look out for?
So now, obviously, with Manchester United getting to the cup final, there's a chance that they win the FA Cup and subsequently get a Europa League spot from winning it. That means that if Newcastle United finish 6th, and Man United finish 7th, but win the FA Cup, they get the Europa League spot. Newcastle would drop down in the Conference League. So Newcastle really need to be hoping for Manchester City to win that game. I don't think we'll really be saying that too often, wanting the Manchester City win. Obviously, it doesn't matter if Manchester United finish above Newcastle in the league. But yeah, so Newcastle really could do with a Manchester City win next month.
I think it's probably nailed on, isn't it? And one of the debates we were having last week on social media was whether you'd prefer the Europa Conference over the Europa League because you've got more chance of winning it, or would you want to go into the competition with, at least on paper, the higher caliber of teams?
Yeah, I think if I was offered the choice, I would definitely take Europa League. I think we should definitely be striving for the best European competition we can get in. Saying that though, I think there'll be a lot of fans who would turn around and say, "Give us the Conference League, go to it." Probably favourites to win it. A lot of very obscure, random away days that I'm sure they'd love to get on. But for me, I think go for the Europa League.
Before we get into the main topic of this video, shall we update our listeners on the Parkrun battle? Because I had a brilliant Saturday morning.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had a brilliant Saturday morning. Some of us had to work Saturday morning, so I didn't get the chance to didn't get the chance to do it this weekend. But
I'm sure you missed it because you were working.
I'll be out to regain my title on Saturday when we do battle again.
There's not a chance you're matching that time. I actually got 3 clapping hands emojis from you when I sent you the screenshot.
I was really impressed.
25 minutes and 25 seconds.
You can tell you've been practicing during the week after I beat you last time.
All builds up to it, doesn't it? So you're going to better that time next week?
Well, we'll see.
It's close to match day, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So do you do it before match days?
Yeah, I do. I can't do it before an early kickoff, but a 3 o'clock kickoff, I'm fine to do it.
It doesn't take you 3 hours
Always
to
found,
do the parkrun. Right, shall we get into this then? Because I'm quite excited about this. I know it's going to create a lot of topic and a lot of debate. And like I said at the start of the show, for me, it's kind of just showing people who say, oh, these players are beneath us. I mean, I saw something, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and we probably spoke about it, was the reaction to the news that Lloyd Kelly looks like it's going to happen, and then you've got tossing from Fulham as well. And there was one person said, "Oh, they're beneath us.
Mm-hmm.
We're better than that." But I just don't see the reason, the logic behind that by saying that. You rightly brought up Anthony Gordon signing from Everton when they were pretty much looking destined for the Championship, and look how good he's been, and that's the key point. That I'll just reaffirm: just because they might be battling relegation or indeed do go down, doesn't make them any less of a player. And having looked at the teams battling down the bottom, there's some excellent talent about. So if I was Newcastle United, you'd be hoping that maybe Nottingham Forest, it's going to be. It looks like it's going to probably be Burnley, Sheffield United, and then one of Luton, Nottingham Forest, Everton. Really, you'd want Everton and Nottingham Forest to go down, and then you can sweep in because there's a lot of talent, especially in that Forest side. And of course, we've had the fallout from VAR. Was it 3 penalties for Nottingham Forest? Should they've got against Everton?
I mean, 2 absolute clear-cut penalties, and I think 1 maybe you could say you got away with, but 2 definite stonewallers.
And just a word for the tweet from the Forest Twitter account.
It's one of those things where commentators would say you hate to see it, but you love to see it. But also at the same time, it was absolutely ridiculous. And if Newcastle ever did that, then you'd be embarrassed for them.
I think for me, it just reminds us that Newcastle United are no longer the circus club, whereas once upon a time, before the current ownership took over, you could see.
You could imagine a Mike Ashley ordering that
like
tweet, couldn't you?
Yeah,
getting down at the social team and saying, "I want you to put this out."
Whereas that doesn't happen anymore. They're professional, they've got their heads screwed on. So yeah, I mean, I can understand the frustration because it definitely looked like you say at least 2 penalties, if not 3, in such an important game. But you cannot be sending tweets out like that. There's a place and time to do it, and that certainly was not the way. But at least it's not a Newcastle United tweet. Right, we'll dive straight in. I've gone
let's
for
get in
alphabetical order.
Yep, same here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We mentioned that they're realistic targets.
I want to stress that before we dive into this. I don't want people messaging us on Twitter going, "Oh, I can't believe you've taken this person over Bukayo Saka or this person over Erling Haaland." We've tried to go for transfers that we think are realistic. We're not saying all of them are definitely going to happen or could happen, but we haven't gone too outlandish, have we? Some of them we might disagree on whether they're realistic, but on the whole, I think we've gone for players that you could see in a black and white shirt.
I think before we start with Arsenal, let's just set the store out. What are you expecting Newcastle United to do this, and what are you understanding is their hope and aim in the transfer market?
Well, look, there's a lot of talk as to the outgoings before the incomings, and I think a lot of it does depend on what Newcastle do in terms of getting players out the door. I don't think we'll see this huge overhaul like we saw, the first year. I think we'll probably see a little bit of deadwood. It's probably not the most respectful way to call it, but a few fringe players going, leaving the books, the likes of Loris Karius, players like that. But, I think there is definitely a lot more money to spend than there was in January. I think Eddie Howe will definitely want to see improvements made. But I don't think, I think the perception of it's skewed because of how many injuries they've had and how little players they've had available. I think when everyone's fit and firing, you only need really 2 or 3 adjustments to that team. And I think it's capable of improving on this season. So, we're definitely not saying they're going to sign 19 players, 2 or 3 maybe, but these are some options that Eddie Howe might and his transfer team might want to take a look at.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they probably don't have too many first team sellable assets. You don't want to get rid of your Bruno, your Joe Linton, your Tonali's, your top players who you want to build your team around, your Isaacs, the players who are maybe more threat, or maybe your Sean Longstaffs, your Jacob Murphys, your Miguel Almirons, the players that Eddie Howe really depends on and likes.
Yeah.
But actually for the good of the team, they may be sold. And if it is someone like Sean Longstaff, that obviously feeds into the financial fair play and what have you. And yeah, I do think they'll need maybe 4, 5. We kind of know the areas they're looking at: centre back, probably a midfielder, even though there's a little bit oversubscribed there, and then the striker and potentially a right winger as well. But I mean, when you see people talking about the summer and they say they want Murphy, they want Lascelles, they want Wilson, they want Kraft, they want Carrot, and the list goes on and on and on. You're talking 10, 12 players, and I scratch my head and think, well, you're not going to get much money for them. And the wages that you save aren't going to be that high in comparison to the players that you want to bring in. Like, where's the replacements?
And also, this is Eddie Howe talking about, and not somebody like Mauricio Pochettino at Chelsea, who's happy to just clear rank. Eddie Howe has been given time and opportunity after opportunity to clear house, and he's never done it. He's wanted to keep the core together most summers, most Januaries, and he's succeeded. And I don't think that'll be much different this summer.
Yeah, he likes what he likes. He likes to trust the players he's got, and it wouldn't surprise us if you saw Miguel Almiron and Jacob Murphy and Callum Wilson still here this time next season, because he likes to trust the players that he knows can work in a system. I think the other thing to mention as well is probably the players that I've certainly picked. They're not necessarily straight into the first team, as in because how can you improve on a Bruno or Joe Linton? I mean, they're top of their class.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've gone for is more building a squad with some of these names, because I think that's the way you improve those players, by making sure the competitiveness around them is there. So you've got to build the squad in depth. That's what has come out this season. They don't have that depth in the squad.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these players, people will be thinking, well, we're there. They're not better than Bruno. They're not better than Joe Linton. I go, fine. But what they are is they will push Joe Linton and Bruno to a next level. And these players are still good Premier League players with experience. Some are a bit raw, but if these players came in, they would certainly help build a good side.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. Arsenal?
Right. So I just want to also add one more thing. I'm known for sitting on the fence in your eyes, and there's a couple where I've picked, I haven't been able to separate it. Now, I've got 2 down for Arsenal, but I'm going to cut it to 1. And the 2 that I've got at the minute are Zinchenko and Aaron Ramsdale.
Oh, right.
I'm going to cut it to Aaron Ramsdale.
I've got another.
Yeah, I've seen your list, and don't get us wrong. This person that you've picked was on my radar, but I just think for the players they've got in that position at the minute, I don't think he comes in and overtakes them. So I'll cut mine down from 2 of them to Ramsdale. I think if you can get him in for a reasonable fee, and he wants first team football, then I think
get him in. Ramsdale ahead of Nick Pope.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to say that he would come in ahead of Nick Pope.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think that's much of an improvement, if at all.
But I think a positive for it would be if, God forbid something happens to Nick Pope like it has this season, the quality's there. I think Newcastle United need 2 goalkeepers of real quality, don't they?
They do, and it's funny you should ask, because there's been a story about Arsenal wanting 60 million for Ramsdale, which is a huge amount of money, and probably the majority in Newcastle's budget. Yeah. So that's one reason I don't think this deal is going to happen. I know he has worked with Eddie Howe before, didn't he? Bournemouth when he was on loan there. And I asked the comment on Facebook when I put this story out on our Facebook page, is he better than Nick Pope? I'm just reading through the comments now. It's the first time I've seen these comments. So we've got Ernie saying, I don't rate Ramsdale. Mark saying, 1 year left on his contract. No way I pay over 35 million. Trevor saying, if they want 60 million, that must mean Pope's worth 100 million.
I wouldn't be paying 60 million for him, by the way. So
Chris saying he's a class keeper, but he's not better than Popey. So yeah, it doesn't look like the majority of fans would take Ramsdale
I
over
like
Pope. I mean,
Ramsdale.
having both of them in the squad is a massive improvement, but I don't think he's better than Nick Pope.
But I think this summer what we're going to see is we're going to see Loris Karius go. We're going to potentially see Martin Dubravka go. I don't think he's had a half a season of first team football, and I don't think he'll want to go back to being a deputy. He's also getting no younger, and after the Euros, he might want to one final challenge elsewhere. I think Newcastle have got to go out and get either a young keeper who's going to be able to work and learn from putting Nick Pope behind him, or go out and try and get a deal for someone like Ramsdale.
Yeah, I'm not having it. I mean, Emile Smith Rowe for me. I mean, to be fair, both these names are kind of in the same boat. Whereas you can see Ramsdale's confidence is absolutely shot, and Emile Smith Rowe, he looks exactly the same. But I just wonder with him, he's still got his best years ahead of him. Obviously, he's had injury issues. But we saw the success Newcastle had with Joe Willock picking off talented players from Arsenal who just can't force their way into the starting 11. And where Arsenal are going, they're probably going to be signing, bigger and better players. And then I know people will say, well, then why do we want their casts off? But Emile Smith Rowe has got talent. And I just think Eddie Howe can bring the best out of him, just like he has done with Joe Willock. Yeah, I think he'd be a really, really good addition. I think he'd fit in. He's been around the England camp with Kieran Trippier and others as well. I think he'd be a real talent. And I do think he would push the likes of Sean Longstaff, Sandro Tonali for starting that starting 11.
But is he a centre midfielder though, or is he more of a 10 or a winger? See, when I saw you mentioning Smith Rowe on your list there, I instantly thought, well, he's not going to get in above Gordon and Barnes. And you're seeing it as he's not getting in above, or he's getting in above Longstaff and Tonali, or he's pushing them.
A little bit of a formation.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a versatile player. He's young. He's hungry. He had real success at Arsenal under Emery, and also at the start of Arteta's reign. Very injury prone. Hasn't played many minutes, and yeah, I don't know.
Your suggestion of Ramsdale's getting a battering in the comments here.
It's a good start,
Gary,
isn't it? Good start.
60 million for a number 2. Pope's better.
For the record, can I just say I would not pay 60 million for Ramsdale?
Well, if that's the asking price, you're going to have to, Mr. Jim Ratcliffe. For the marginal gains of improvement, Ramsdale versus strength in other positions, for the money, it makes no sense, says Lousy. So he's saying he's not better than Nick Pope. He says, why don't we go for James Trafford as backup to Nick Pope, which is getting a lot of likes as well. So yes, I think Emile Smith Rowe over Ramsdale, but we're not. It's not as if we're going to kind of pick. We're going to argue, but we're not going to go in and have a definite pick. Aston Villa.
Again, I'm sorry, I've got like 2 or 3 written down, but the one I ended up settling on, and look, people might say this is unrealistic, and it might be. Do I change my mind last minute?
No, it's like a penalty. You just got to follow.
Right, no, I'm gonna follow through because it's the one I did this list on Friday, and I had this person first, and I've got Douglas Luiz.
Douglas Luiz. Now, he was the first person that came to my mind.
Now, just to set the stall out, I don't think this would happen. I think it'd be too much money. I think the season he's had at Villa, his price tag would be enormous. But in terms of, you could arguably see it happen maybe if they don't get Champions League. I don't know. Fantastic player. Can do it all.
He's brilliant, but it would never happen in Monday Sundays. And it was that definition of realism for me when I looked at it and thought, he's not going to. I think he'll leave Villa in the summer because I think they'll have to sell.
You think he'll go to someone bigger?
And I think he'll be the sacrifice. I think he'll end up at a City, potentially.
Back at City? I mean, they got rid of him, didn't they?
They did, but I think this is what City do. They'll let the players go and they can just buy them back up when needed. I think he will leave, but it won't be for Newcastle.
Well, I had 2 more on my list that were both different yours, and I've deleted one because I don't think it's realistic, but that's Emi Martinez.
Did you get the memo about realism here?
And another one, which I think is definitely a lot more realistic than the other 2, John McGinn.
How is that real? How is it realistic that they sell their captain?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not saying it like that, but in terms of ability,
Billy, a fantastic player. But we're talking about waking up in the middle of July, getting a text from a contact saying, right, he's on his way up. And they're never going to sell their captain.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, selling John McGinn is up there with like selling Bruno.
Well, I
In terms of
I
the
wouldn't go
importance,
that far.
in terms of the importance of this of the
And
side.
also, we're talking about Aston Villa here, who have got real PSR struggles.
Yeah, and
Now, I'm not saying Newcastle are going to go out and sign John McGinn, but I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that they go out and
But
sign
how much is John
McGinn.
McGinn, as good as he is, going to fetch? He's not going to fetch more than Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz is going to fetch a lot of money. You're talking 75, 80
Well,
million.
let's just scratch my 3 options off there, because
I
clearly
think
they're
you've had-
all
I think
absolute
you've had-
nonsense. So.
I've gone for Jacob Ramsey, who
Okay.
was linked
Yeah,
in
he was linked in
January,
January, wasn't he?
last minute deal. It was 50 million or so, which I think is a little bit overpriced, but a young man, plenty of ability there. He's raw. He hasn't really managed to hold down a first team place at Villa, but I just see him as someone who's got a lot of talent, and with the right manager around him, with the opportunities. And now people would say, well, where's he going to come in? I get that, but it's about building a squad, and I think he would be an excellent addition and a much more realistic one than.
Yeah,
John
look,
McGinn.
I'll admit the L there. I haven't thought that through properly with Villa. Somebody's agreeing with me in the comments on Jacob Ramsey though.
Well, I was just going to read first off to kind of phrase saying happy to sell our captain, just saying scandalous. Keep Jamal Lascelles until the bitter end. Yes, and Jake saying Jacob Ramsey. I mean, he would cost it a pretty penny.
Yeah, it would cost a lot of money, but
he's a very, very
Tidy
talented player. Brighton. Bournemouth. I've missed Bournemouth. I've missed Bournemouth out.
You've missed Brentford as well. Where's your alphabet?
I've missed Brentford.
Bournemouth. I don't think we really need to spend too long talking about this. We've got the same player, and it's for the reason we all know. It's Dom Solanke.
Yeah, we've got Dominic Solanke because Lloyd Kelly, I think, will end up in Newcastle United player.
And also, if you could have the choice of Kelly and Solanke, I think you'd choose Solanke.
But I think first off, Lloyd Kelly Newcastle is a really exciting deal. It's going to help with the budget. Again, someone Eddie Howe knows best years ahead of him, which is really important. And he just again adds to the squad depth that they don't have this season. But on Dominic Solanke, I know he's got a lot of questions because this is his first prolific season in the Premier League. But with every passing week, he just gets better and better, and he looks like a man who's finally at home. He looks comfortable. My only question is, would he want to leave a Bournemouth side which is on the up, which is playing to his strengths, and which he's finally found his shooting boots in the Premier League?
Mm-hmm.
I think he might say one more season here, just so I've got that goal scoring feeling for another season. I think it would be a big risk in many ways to spend 60 million on Solanke after one prolific season. I can see why people ask that question. That said, I think he's going to be prolific till he finishes now. I think he's absolutely brilliant.
I've seen a lot of people using that argument of, he's only done it for one season. But for me, I don't think this season's a flash in the pan. I generally think he's grown into a really confident, assured Premier League striker. It would cost a lot of money, but he would be an ideal backup for Isak, I think. And look, he scored more goals than Salah, Foden, Son, Isak, Bowen, and Saka in the league this season.
We've got a lot of talented players at Bournemouth.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
they're a really good side. I know.
But for me, that one was easy. I knew
he's the standout.
So he's the standout player.
Philip Billing always gets a mention, and we spoke about him quite a few times on this podcast, but he hasn't really played of late. To the best of my knowledge, he's kind of been out of the side. But again, just another one who maybe just needs to be shown the right door. He needs to be shown a bit of love and care and attention, and he could become back to that level that we've seen him in the Premier League. And he would be another one who would definitely add competition to this squad. He's very versatile himself, Premier League experience, can score goals, get his foot in the challenge, and he'd probably be a lot cheaper than he would have been a year ago as well. And just because he hasn't been playing as often this season, it doesn't mean that under Eddie Howe he couldn't get back to the levels that he's proven he can in the Premier League. I think it wouldn't be a bad call at all to go after Billing.
Yeah, no, do at all. There's question marks over where he would fit in the system. He's played his best football at Bournemouth in the 10. But yeah, no, I think.
I mean, do we see Newcastle sticking with the system?
Yeah, come on. Of course they do.
Yeah. So that means the players like him who are better at it as a 10 probably would be out of position or on the bench. Someone has mentioned Justin Kluivert.
Good season, but he's a little bit hit and miss. Still young enough, though, to make it good, but I wouldn't be taking him over Dominic Solanke.
You've got Semeno as well, who I think is absolutely brilliant.
Semeno, a good player.
Bit of speed on there. And Tavernier signed from Borough, who's another one who, again, could come in and just
Alex Scott as well. I nearly went for.
He was signed from Bristol, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
he was linked with Newcastle when he signed for Bournemouth. He's had a little stop-start. Was
You can tell we're massive fans of Bournemouth.
Yeah, we had a couple there.
Very talented side, and I'm a big fan of the manager as well. Brentford, yes, I miss Brentford out, which is annoying because I'm a big fan of some of their players. I mean, I think Ivan Toney's probably the one that stands out more than anyone. Is that realistic? Because you're going to be looking at 60, 70, 80 million. He's made it clear that he wants to move to a bigger team. I think we all remember that interview he did just after his ban was up.
Many interviews he's done. It feels like every week he's
couldn't believe
it. Do
you know what? Some people say, well, that's ambition. It's normal for him to say that, etc. But actually, I looked upon that and thought, mate, even if you believe that, even if that's your actual desire, which it looks like it is, you don't want to say that out in the public. You get your agent to pick up the phone, drop the hints about the top clubs.
Especially when Brentford have stuck by you through the ban as well.
Imagine if Tonali came out in the summer and was like, I'm off, lads. A few and so that for me puts me slightly off him because I just think it shows the questions of his attitude have always been there, and that for me raises a red flag.
And remember that really weird video he did in like a Marbella beach club where some girl asked him to say F Brentford, and he did. I mean, the disrespect is just ridiculous. I've actually gone for a different one to Tony. And before people come at us, I did this list on Friday, and before he had an absolute storm at the weekend, Bryan Mbeumo.
I love him.
Is absolutely ridiculous.
And he's only 24.
He's 24.
He looks about 40.
Now, I think he'd cost you a lot of money. I think he'd cost you close to what Tony would cost you. But as a right winger, and we're talking about who could potentially come in to upgrade from Miggy, Bryan Mbeumo would be by shadow of doubt. And I've got some stats here. Miggy Almiron has scored 23 Premier League goals in 173 appearances, and Bryan Mbeumo has scored 21 goals in 94 appearances.
And then a worse side as well.
And Miggy has got 6 assists in 173 Prem games, and Bryan Mbeumo has got 20 in 94. 1 assist every 4 games.
Yeah, he would be an upgrade on Miguel Almiron. I suppose the only question would be, would he come in and play second fiddle to Gordon on the right because you'd have Barnes on the left, which is all part of building a squad. And if you're playing European football, playing 3 games a week, then you can sell the dream to them. So you're still going to get enough game time. But he is absolutely brilliant. He's got speed. He's quick with the ball. His positional awareness is fantastic, and an eye for goal. And yeah, only 24. I absolutely love him. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I love watching him. I think Johan Wissa is another one who could come in and do a job as well. You've got Rico Henry, who is injured, but before his injury,
really good left back, yeah.
Newcastle in the market probably for a left back, even though they look like they will sign Lewis Hall. I think they'll still be in the market for a left back as well. I would have signed Rico Henry. I think he's an absolutely brilliant fullback. It's a shame he has picked up that injury. But again, they're another team down the bottom end of the table with decent players. I mean, Nathan Collins, again, is not a bad backup to have to Sven Botman and Fabian Schär. Aaron Hickey, another one at right back who could come in and offer something.
Reguilon seems to be coming good now. I know he's only on loan from Tottenham, I think, but he's they've got a really good squad. Really good squad. Looks like they've pulled clear now of relegation as well.
Important win, wasn't it, over the weekends? We're at Brighton next.
Yeah.
Brighton next. I went back and forth on this one, and I've settled on João Pedro.
Same.
Because we know Newcastle United win the market for them.
So you had a couple. Let's go through them, because I had 2 that I crossed off. So my 3, it was between Pedro, Evan Ferguson, and Matoma.
They were mine. Matoma.
Ferguson scored 6 goals this season, 3 of them against Newcastle in the second game of the season. I think he will come good. He looks a fantastic player. He's very young, but he just hasn't done it for long enough for me. Matoma, very good as well. He's had a little bit of a quiet season.
That's what put me off.
But Pedro, I mean, I really wanted him when he was at Watford, and Newcastle were obviously very, very close to getting him before Watford persuaded him to stay. It was obviously around the time that Newcastle were trying to get the likes of Ekatike and all that over the line as well. He looks really good. He's still, 20, 21?
Yeah, he's a young man, and obviously the reason Newcastle really courted him. And he ended up Brighton, but he's had a really strong start to life there. and he's got all the attributes of a real prolific Premier League striker. I mean, how much did they sign him for? 30
I think it was 30 million. And look, there's a question mark again about whether it's realistic because, would Brighton, who are on the cusp of Europe, be selling their best
they're on
young
the cusp
striker
of
to
Europe.
Newcastle?
They're falling away.
Well, do you know what I mean? It's not as if they're languishing at the bottom of the table and players are going to be, seeing Newcastle as a huge step up the league table.
I don't know. I think if you're João Pedro and Newcastle come knocking, then I think you might want to make the jump.
But he had the chance to push for a move last summer and he didn't. He ended up signing a new 5-year deal at Watford 2 years ago. So
yeah, I get that. I do get that, but more to the point about Brighton, Newcastle. I mean, with all due respect to Brighton, very exciting team to watch, but I just think they're so inconsistent, and I think they'll be stuck in that kind of no man's land of like 10th to 7th. I don't ever see them going above that. Whereas the hope with Newcastle is that in 2 or 3 years they will be established Champions League contenders in the Premier League to play in the Champions League. So yeah, I think if Newcastle came knocking for a player at Brighton, I think the jump definitely. With all due respect to Brighton.
I think you're doing a little bit of a disrespect there.
I don't rate De Zerbi all that much. He gets a lot of good press, but I'm not.
I like De
convinced.
Zerbi and I like the style of play, and I think but I think talk of him replacing Klopp seems a bit premature, doesn't it?
Definitely, 100%. Burnley then.
Well, I want to start with a funny story about picking the Burnley players because I went on what I thought was the Burnley squad on their website the other day when I was picking this team, and I got about halfway down the page and I was like, I recognise absolutely none of these players. And I was thinking, bloody hell, I just don't. How have I missed all these players playing for Burnley? I didn't realise they were that bad. Took us a good 30 seconds to realise I was on the under 18 page. But I think that just goes to show how uninspiring Burnley's squad is on a whole. If I'm honest, I don't really have any strong feelings about any of them. But if I had to pick one, and I'm sort of cheating here because he's actually a Chelsea player, not a Burnley player, but it would be Dacro Fofana.
Okay, I can see why you've done that.
21-year-old striker, obviously signed for Chelsea in the summer, went straight out on loan. He started to find his feet in the last 2 months. Looks a really good, versatile forward. A lot of Chelsea fans saying, why on earth have you loaned him out when we've got Nicholas Jackson, who, just looks absolutely lost at the minute. But if I'm completely honest, there's no one really from that Burnley team for me that stuck out. James Trafford, maybe.
A lot of people mentioned James Trafford in the comments. And this isn't the only team where we've struggled. There's a couple of teams where we've gone, would they really improve the Newcastle United squad? And the answer is no. I mean, Trafford's had bad press.
He got dropped as well, didn't he, for Burnley's reserve keeper? I like Sander Berg.
I was going to say, he's probably the one that stands out more than most. You've also got... Sander Berg has got to be the one, hasn't it, that stands out. I mean, Aaron Ramsey, who came up from Villa, is another one who could do a job in the years to come. But I think if you look at that squad right now for an instant impact, it'd be Sander Berg, but he's not getting ahead of any of the midfielders Newcastle United.
Koleosho had a good game at St James Park early in the season, but that was when Dan Burn was just struggling week in, week out.
Odegaard, who's only 19 actually, he looks lively. But again, are you going to buy him ahead of the youth that's potentially coming through at Newcastle United? So yeah, Burnley, no one there that really inspires you that you'd like Newcastle United to go out and get in the summer. Next on the list is Chelsea, which was very close to being in that bracket, I've got to be honest. I look at that Chelsea squad and think, I mean, there's not anyone that I would say can really improve Newcastle. I mean, everyone's going to say Conor Gallagher. We know Newcastle scouts were watching a few weeks ago, and he looks like one man that might be sacrificed to try and help meet the financial rules. But I'm not convinced by him. Like a few years ago, when Newcastle were in the loan market and he had the chance to come here or go to Crystal Palace, I think he actually had 2 opportunities and he turned them down twice. Once, you turn Newcastle down once, that's enough for me. I know you just said João Pedro and you said it's Newcastle, but I wonder how much that was Newcastle maybe not wanting to pay the price tag. But in terms of Newcastle were happy for Conor Gallagher to come here. Everything was kind of done and dusted, and it was the player's choice to go to Crystal Palace. Also think he's going to cost you £78 million. He's going to probably have to break the wage structure at Newcastle to come here. And anyone Gareth Southgate picks consistently for no reason, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, the Gallagher thing, I think it's been and gone. He covers a lot of ground. He's very good at pressing, but I just think with the ball, I don't know whether he just lacks a little something. I don't think we could sit here and say he walks into that Newcastle team. The thing I had with Chelsea now, there's a couple of players that I really like, but unfortunately, I just don't think that they fit the realistic category. That's obviously Cole Palmer, but it's just not realistic. Malo Gusto at right back looks absolutely fantastic. Again, I don't think it's realistic. Reece James, on his day, if he's not injured, is brilliant, but not realistic. Then you're looking around the others. Enzo and Caicedo, you just think they're scored by the price tag. Wesley Fofana looked brilliant at Leicester. Obviously, Chelsea paid a lot of money to bring him in.
Isn't the
He's
question
injured
here
all the time.
how they spent close to £1 billion and we're not sitting here with envy?
Well, they've spent £1 billion, and some of their key players this season have been Cucurella, who's obviously signed from Brighton, Malang Sarr, who you sort of forgets even there. We've got Chukwu, who was signed in the summer. Mudryk, who, Shakhtar Donetsk have just absolutely had their pants down. Lavia, who's played one game, and obviously they pinched him from Liverpool. Madueke, just every week. He obviously had that penalty controversy last week. He was laughing with Grealish after the cup final the other night. He's in the Chelsea fans' bad books. I'm just looking around that squad, and it's not £1 billion squad, is it? I think when you look at what Manchester City and Liverpool have done with their finances in recent years and built teams capable of going far in every competition, Chelsea are just so far behind.
You don't want to bring a bad egg in, do you?
No.
Newcastle's strength is the unity in the squad, and that's why I think actually things are starting to pick up now, and they're going to finish the season strongly. Because when it was going really bad, everyone was united. You didn't get the feeling that in the dressing room people were pointing fingers. It was like a collective error. It was a collective bad run of form, and we're starting to see the benefits of everyone sticking together. Whereas at Chelsea, they don't look like a team at all. The only person really for me is Levi Colwill, who obviously was on loan at Brighton, did really well last season. Chelsea decided to keep him despite Brighton trying to sign him. He's probably the only one, I think, out of the entire squad I would like to see Newcastle push for on a realistic basis. 21 years of age, 32 times he's played this season. Storming season, as I said, Brighton last season. Not taking your fancy?
No, I like him. I just don't know how realistic it would be. But I think he's a really good player. He showed at Brighton how good he is. He's versatile. Played out on the left as well this season. Yeah, I wouldn't be against it.
We've got a few people in support of Conor Gallagher. Lousy saying he's a pressing high turnovers machine. He would suit Eddie Howe's style. Eric saying most of our fans don't want him, but he's a Premier League proven player and would suit Eddie Howe's style. Let us know in the comments and what you are thinking. Who's next on the list then?
Crystal Palace.
See, there's going to be two players on this list.
I've just seen your list and I just think, what if I can't have John McGinn, then you definitely can't have this player.
No,
it's
because
so unrealistic.
Right, name the player.
It's Eze for you,
and Elise is on the list as well. There's more chance of Eze and Elise leaving Crystal Palace than there is John McGinn and Aston Villa. Definitely, the way those two play.
It's Palace selling Eze would be like them selling Bruno and Isaac.
Yeah,
that's how important he is to them.
No, I get that, but also if Newcastle come in with an £80 million bid and say we're going to offer you European football,
well, they could do that to John McGinn as well.
He's not going to leave Aston Villa. He's captain of Aston Villa. Aston Villa are going to be in Europe. They're not going to not have European football next season. They could win a European competition. No, I'm not having that. Palace selling Eze or Elise.
Sorry, I've got nothing against.
Are you saying that Elise and Eze are going to be Palace players next season?
No, but I think Newcastle United aren't going to be signing them because if they do leave Palace, they're going to City or Arsenal or Manchester United or Liverpool. Eze, right, yes, naturally he's the pick. Elise would be second pick. But I just don't think they're realistic shouts, which is why I avoided them.
You see, I don't agree. I think they're much more realistic than some of the names you had on that list originally. Who was your pick then?
Mine is Adam Wharton.
They just signed him for like 30 million from Blackburn, right?
Yeah, they signed him last summer.
Talk me through this realistic pick.
Well, if you're saying that Eze and Elise are realistic, then
they sell Eze or Elise to offset the payment that they've paid for him, and he then becomes a star.
But what if they can double their money for Wharton after one good season in the Prem?
Is he that good?
Adam Wharton will generally be playing for a top 4, top 6 club in the next couple of years. He's that good. Newcastle were really heavily linked with him when he left Blackburn. I think he's only 20 still. Jumped to division, still looks comfortable. I think he's a lot more realistic than Eze and Elise. And I'm not saying it's realistic that Newcastle can sign him, but he's a lot more realistic than your two.
I don't agree. Eric's saying McGinn is one of the most underrated players in the Premier League.
Yes, thank you, Eric.
Well, I'm not saying he's not. I think he's an absolutely fantastic
quality.
player. And I'd love to see him at Newcastle because I think he would really suit Eddie Howe's style. But it's not going to happen. He's captain of Aston Villa. And I genuinely do think that if Newcastle could make the money work and they could go in with Eze with a high monetary bid and maybe a player as well in tow, they could persuade him to move.
Do you think it's realistic that Newcastle spend 80 million on Eze this summer?
Maybe not this summer.
Well, there we go.
But I mean, if you look at
we should move on.
Well, we haven't spoken about the centre back at Crystal Palace, whose name can get pronounced 1,000 different ways. Anderson. Joachim Anderson. Although we got wrong the last time we announced it like that.
Did we?
Somewhere in the comments, but it's not Joachim or Joachim. Anyway, Anderson, heavily linked, and he's been heavily linked for a long, long time. Even when back in his Fulham days as well. Solid defender, but you are probably looking at 35 million pounds.
I like him, and I think he's very similar to Fabian Schär in terms of what he can do with the ball. He's got a really good eye for a pass. Newcastle heavily linked with him this summer. I wouldn't be against it. I think looking around the rest of the Palace team, though, there's not too many that I would take.
Lousy says selling Eze could be like Villa selling Grealish and allows them a significant squad rebuild. This man knows what I'm talking about.
But what I'm saying is that if Crystal Palace say we're going to sell Eze this summer because he's going to be our Grealish and we want 80, 100 million, I don't think Newcastle are winning that race.
Fair enough. I get your point. Harpal asks, who does Gallagher replace? We have Bruno, Tonali, Joe Linton, Anderson, Longstaff, Miley, Willock.
Great point.
So where does he come in for? Would he even start for us? I don't think so. Good bench option, however, and I don't think he'd accept the bench option with Conor Gallagher. Right, Everton, you said off camera before we started this, you struggled.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and I was surprised because I'll tell you what, I'll go on record, right? I'm going to get absolute pelters for it, and this man is not on this list, right? But if you offer me Aaron Ramsdale or Jordan Pickford, right?
Pickford's on my list.
Is Pickford?
No, I'm joking. I was going to make it as
Jordan Pickford is a better goalkeeper than Aaron Ramsdale.
If Jordan Pickford wasn't a Sunderland fan, if Jordan Pickford supported any other club in the world, Jordan Pickford would be my pick.
It's not the fact he's a Sunderland fan for me, it's just the fact of the way he handles himself within the arena of St James's Park. I can handle being a Sunderland fan. Yeah, but the point is you can be a Sunderland fan and not be immature.
No, but what I mean is if Jordan Pickford wasn't a Sunderland fan and then didn't do those antics, then I think he would be my pick. I think he generally would have been my pick.
Can it upgrade on Nick Pope? Would he be? I think he would be. Yeah, I think he's a
and
real.
Then we're going to get pelters for it, but let's not beat about the bush.
Well, do you know against Everton a few weeks back, I was just sitting there and thinking, I really hate to say it, but he's a good goalkeeper.
He is.
Like he's a solid goalkeeper.
He's a very good.
He does make a few mistakes every now and then, but in general, I do think he's a very good goalkeeper. But he's not on my list. But I have got two on the list, and I'm surprised that you struggled. Why did you struggle?
Because I'm just looking on the team and I just think, who really comes into this team and improves it? You could say maybe Dominic Calvert-Lewin, too much money, too injury prone. Dwight McNeil, I don't think he's at the level of the wingers we've got. James Garner looks good, but he's just signed for them. And again, does he walk into our midfield? Idrissa Gueye, walking yellow card machine. Andre Gomez passed it. Dele Alli doesn't play. Doucouré.
He's my second pick.
Doucouré would be one.
He'd be my second pick because of his. I just think the experience that he has, and he can do it all. He can really do it all, in my opinion. So
I think if we were talking 6 months ago, I would have went Amadou Onana, but I just think he seems to have really fallen off recently. Defense, I like Mikalenko, but he wouldn't be my pick. I like Godfrey, but he wouldn't be my pick. My pick is Jared Branthwaite. Right.
No,
I just look at that team.
But he's going to cost you.
Well, yeah. Oh,
a lot of money.
What about Eze? Is he not going to cost you a lot of money? You can't have these double standards. Come on.
He's a very talented.
He's a very talented defender.
Unless he comes up against Alexander Isak, but no, I mean, it's interesting with the centre-back situation because obviously they're going to have to go and probably sign 2 defenders in the summer because of the injuries to Lascelles and Botman. So one first-team player for sure. But then what about the other one? Are you looking at someone who brings cover and competition? Are you looking for someone who, I mean, could you potentially have 2 new centre-backs starting come the first game of the season?
Yeah, potentially. I don't see why not.
So you would have Braithwaite and one of another, and then Anderson potentially. Then obviously Botman comes back. Fabian Schär's signed a new deal. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm just wondering whether you find someone to replace Fabian Schär, and also how you also sell a move if you're the second incoming centre back.
Yeah.
And he goes, wait there, you've got Fabian Schär, you've got Botman coming back from injury. Okay, Lascelles will be behind me in the list, but you've got.
But incoming players know, especially if you're the age of Branthwaite, that Fabian Schär and Lascelles are, let's be honest, they're not going to be at the club in 3-4 years' time, are they?
But you're not waiting around 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but there's going to be opportunities. I mean, just look at this season.
Yeah.
And European football as well. Hopefully.
Unana was my first pick.
Yeah, like I say, I think he had a really good start to the season, and I just think he's maybe had a dip in form.
But look where Everton are. I mean, it's hard
tricky,
to play at your best ability when everything that's going off the pitch and it's not going well on the pitch. So for me, a drop off in form isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, look, you'd like him to score more goals. He's only scored 3 Premier League goals for Everton, so he'd have to add a few more goals to his name, and he's going to cost them a lot of money. And he was briefly linked to Newcastle before he signed for Everton, but again, 22 years of age, him and Bruno in the middle. I mean, the athleticism of that guy is unbelievable. Doucouré, as I said, I think his experience is really key. 31 years of age, and he knows where the goal is. He's a real goal scorer in midfield, and I just think this Newcastle United squad, and most of the players we've mentioned already, are very young, and do they need just a little bit of experience in that team?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Next on the list, Fulham.
Yeah, so Fulham, mine was quite easy in terms of the one player that I picked, and that's, wow. Now that we've gone through the rest of the list, you might say it's not realistic, but João Palhinha, I think he's streets away. He's the best Fulham player by far. Got a stat here I've got a tweet here. Sorry, no, I've got a stat and a tweet for you. The stat is that João Palhinha has made at least 100 more tackles than any player in the Premier League since he joined Fulham. And just to back that up, a Fulham fan tweeted yesterday, Palhinha is not a footballer, he's just a man who loves tackling. And I love that. He's fantastic, isn't he? He looks just a class above in that Fulham team.
And him in that midfield would allow Bruno just to roam and be.
He's really robust, isn't he? Yeah. Really loves to tackle, really loves breaking up the play.
It would be a dream signing for me.
Yeah, a lot of money. I think there'll be a lot of suitors for him in the summer because Fulham are a team doing nothing at the minute.
Bayern Munich interested. Really I think he wants to go there as well. So I don't even think he'll be in the Premier League next season.
Other honourable mentions. I mean, there's
Antoine Robinson, maybe.
Yeah, Anthony Robinson, good shout. Tosin, I think I would love to see Tosin. I think on free to no-brainer. I think if we're looking for a keeper, Bernd Leno has really proven he's good.
I was still in the game.
And also a rogue shout, and the only reason I haven't considered him higher up is because of his age, but I tell you what, I just love Willian.
I think he's brilliant.
He's so good. And the fact he's 38 and he's still churning out performances like that. And it's not just, I think you can tell he's slowing down a bit now, but what he can, like his football and brain is ridiculous.
You can imagine him supplying Isak.
Yeah, he's brilliant. If it was a couple of years younger, I think he would have been my pick.
Interesting. Because like I say, it goes back to that experience point, doesn't it? But Palhinha, my number one pick. I've got Robinson written down as well.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to what Newcastle are going to do at left back. I do think they will sign another left back.
Yeah.
To go alongside Lewis Hall, because we were talking actually about centre backs just before. Dan Burn can quite easily come in and be that other centre back. So maybe they don't need to go out and buy a second centre back. Liverpool. I found this one a little bit difficult.
I found this really hard. I found this in City quite hard and Man United quite hard because they're big clubs with not players that you'd really think they're going to sell. I've got 3 written down, and I've just thought of another one.
Well, I'll jump with some comments here. Lousy says, why we're talking about Palhinha when he'd cost just as much as Eze. Jake says, why don't you bring back Hendrick? And Gary says it'd be a big queue for Braithwaite, a very expensive queue, which I think we both accept. My Liverpool pick, I don't think would be very expensive at all. I think it might be a little bit difficult to get him because of the change in manager, and the manager will probably want to come in and assess everything because he's a very talented player. Fabio Carvalho On loan at all at the moment, 8 goals in 17 games. And I think he's absolutely brilliant. 21 years of age. He's been on loan elsewhere. I think it did cost Liverpool quite a pretty penny. Just can't force his way into that side.
He struggled, doesn't he? Like elsewhere, he went to
But you watch him play, He went to Leipzig, and then Hull managed to somehow pull it out of the bag. And they love him down there. I've been working down there last month, and they absolutely love him down there. He's a real talented player. I think he would bring something special to this Newcastle side.
Funnily enough, I've got a Fulham fan who I used to work with who, let's just say, he likes to get carried away whenever Fulham are doing well, and he goes on. He makes predictions that are way too bold. And he once predicted when Fabio Carvalho was at Fulham and enjoying a purple patch that Fabio Carvalho would win the Ballon d'Or.
Oh, that is...
which we all laughed off at the time, and we're obviously all laughing at now. We've never let him forget it.
He could win it in black and white of Newcastle.
I'm not too sure. If I'm honest, I didn't even think of him. I wrote down Harvey Elliott, but let's be honest, that's not realistic. I'm going to get rid of that. I've got 2 written down here. Jarell Kwanzaa, the centre-back who's came in this season, played a lot of minutes. Again, probably not realistic, but I really like him. But I really like him. And look, they've got Konate, they've got Van Dijk, they've got Gomez who can play there. They've got somebody else who the name is plenty of options. They've got plenty of options. Really young, really talented. I think if Newcastle, really good centre half that you could potentially sign. I also love Endo. I think they've got a real gem in Endo. He looked awful when he signed for them, but I think you could tell he'd been playing in the Bundesliga.
And the more hope is that they find their own Endo, because again, that's not someone Liverpool are going to sell. Whereas Carvalho on the outskirts, I think they could push him towards the door.
And I've also just thought of one off the top of my head, which I think if I'd thought about earlier, I would have eclipsed them all. Bobby Clark.
Now that's the dream, isn't it? If we were doing this show in 4 or 5 years' time, I think he genuinely will end up back in Newcastle.
But I think this is the time to buy him now, rather than when he bursts.
But he's making an impact now. He's made an impact. They know he's a good player.
How much do you think it would cost them to get him now?
35, 40 million, I reckon.
No.
I reckon they've seen someone who can handle the best of the Premier League. Like, okay, his first season.
40 mil, do you reckon?
Come on, he's English for a start. There's always that silly English tax. It's Newcastle, the Saudi tax. It's Newcastle, the competitors tax as well. Like, he wouldn't be cheap. He wouldn't be cheap to everyone else. He's certainly not going to be cheap to Newcastle. Yeah, definitely. I think they'd ask for the world for him.
Yeah.
Someone joking about bringing Dwight Gale back. We're not that desperate just yet. I mean, lovely fella, but he's not going to score goals in the Premier League. Go on. Yeah. I thought you were going to announce something.
No,
there.
I think we can just... Surely we've got the same person here.
Go on then.
Ross Barkley.
Do you know I had Barkley down, and then I got rid of him because I just don't see how he fits in that Newcastle United side.
He's been so good though this season.
No, he has been. He has
so
been
good.
But I just don't see how he fits into that side. So go on, explain why.
Well, I just think, look, Newcastle were always linked with him, weren't they? And it was a deal that just never happened. And he was written off, and he went to Nice, and he was struggling. And he's came to Luton, and he's actually been far and away their best player. I think he's versatile. He's somehow, Ross Barkley playing as a 6 and excelling in it. Who on earth had that on their bingo card? He's good in front of goal, Premier League experience. He's managed to stave off the injuries this season. It cost a lot of money, but if Luton went down, I think it's a no-brainer.
Is he a shining in a poor side though? Is he the only star in that side? That's why he's coming.
because Luton are struggling, but he's really impressive.
I just want to pick you up on something. So like the names you mentioned, like Polina, for instance, or Eze, for example, they're names of players we like who think we think they are talented, but we know Newcastle are not going to sign Eze. They're not going to sign Polina either. But still. Within the reams of realism. But you just there have said, if Luton go down, Ross Barkley's a no-brainer. So that's different, isn't it? You're genuinely saying that they should go after him.
I think if Luton go down and need a seller, then I'd have absolutely no problem with Newcastle going after Ross Barkley. And as you said at the top of the show, this isn't about players that are naturally going to walk into that first team. But Ross Barkley's an option. If Ross Barkley signed for Newcastle and next season he was putting in performances like he was this season, you'd have him in a heartbeat. And I just also, a part of the Barkley pick was also the fact that I just think there's very little Luton players that I would actually have. And I think you're going to have the person that was second on my list.
I've gone for Alfie Doughty.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would like him. He's had a very good first season in the Prem.
To a lot of people will be like, what you want about? But if you look at his stats, 7 assists, 2 goals. He's created 63 chances, chances per 91.62. You know, he's a very competent Premier League player. 24 years of age. I've been very impressed with him, and I don't think he costs you that much. And again, if we're talking about building the squad, he's someone who's going to get better with the right coach. And this guy, remember, you've got Eddie Howe, who's a coach who has somehow turned Joe Linton into a tank in the middle of the park. Not many managers can do that. And the point being is, yes, Alfie Doughty's not a world beater. He's probably not a top 6 player, but with the right guidance, he could quite easily become one, couldn't he?
I did consider him a good player. Maybe a little bit of an assist merchant this season, but very good.
He's not an assist merchant.
Yeah, well, I just think if he didn't have...
Isn't that what you want, though?
Yeah, but if he didn't have so many assists, would so many people be talking about him? That's the only issue.
That's what he's paid to do.
Well, yeah. So is he going to...
If Greg didn't sell so much nice pasties, would you go to eat there?
No, but he's a footballer. His job isn't just to provide assists. What if he's not on set pieces at Newcastle?
But they brought him in, they know his strengths.
Okay.
So I can't be having that. Right.
Okay.
Man City next? I missed one out?
Yeah, Man City. Yeah, I really struggle with this one because obviously how many of them are realistic?
Well, I'm going back to Hull for this one.
Okay.
Liam Delap is on loan at Hull. And I know that is not a sexy name, and I just saw your reaction there. And he's only scored 7 goals while being on loan. But he's another raw talent from
21.
City who's held in really high regard at City. And what to say, he doesn't follow the same path as Cole Palmer.
I was just about to say, are you thinking maybe he'd follow Palmer? Yeah.
He can't get in the first team at Man City, so it stunts his development. Now, would he necessarily walk into a team at Newcastle? Probably not, but he's going to get his opportunities behind Isak. Okay, 7 goals, not the most prolific in the Championship, but that will come in time. And if Newcastle United could get him on the cheap, I think he'd be a perfect addition to the squad because he's got so much to learn about his game. I think he'd push Isak. He's shown he can handle it in the Premier League. I think Man City probably will reassess him in the summer, but I think Newcastle quite easily get him on the cheap.
Yeah, not as bad as a show as I first thought, to be fair. Again, very, very limited City options. But yeah, Delap was good. He played a little bit under Pep, didn't he, before he went on loan, but he just never really held down that spot.
I can't tell if Jake's from the wind up here in the comments. He's just said Calvin Phillips. We've discussed that, and it hasn't left Aaron.
Yeah,
Aaron's very embarrassed.
Well, he's a West Ham player, isn't he? So we can't have him on the list. Mine is obviously Scott Carson. No, the only one I could really generally think of that was half realistic is Nathan Ake, and I think I would take Nathan Ake.
I would take Nathan Ake. I don't think it's realistic. I certainly don't think it's realistic for the price tag that you mooted a few weeks back.
Yeah, but you say it's not realistic, right? If you put Manchester City's centre-backs in terms of ability in a list, I think you've got Diaz above him, you've definitely got John Stones above him, you've got Guardiola above him, and you could say Kanji is probably above him. If they're all fit, and I know you can play left-back and he plays, the left of the 3, whatever, I think he is 5th for the list. Now, if Manchester City go out and spend 80 million on a centre-back this summer, which they could well easily do, I think then Nathan Ake drops down that pecking order even more. I don't think that's unrealistic.
He would have to knock on the door, though, wouldn't he? And say, I'd like to get on down the road. Of course, ex-Bournemouth player as well. So
yeah, knows Eddie Howe. A lot of fans turned their nose up at him at the start of the season, and he's had a really good year. So I would like that.
Manchester United now, for me, there's like next to no one in that squad.
I already know who your players is. I'm really going to get
no. Right, it's not. I just want to. Right, so the player I've got written down is Marcus Rashford. He's not necessarily a pick like some of the other names you've mentioned.
He's also so unreal.
I know that. So let me just set it out so I understand.
I wasn't allowed John McGinn, and you put Marcus Rashford.
What I'm saying is, Marcus Rashford isn't necessarily the pick. I just wanted to speak about the impact that I believe Eddie Howe could have on a player like Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford is not going to be a Newcastle United player. Newcastle United are not going to go and sign him. They're not going to have any interest in him. That's, as clear as day. My point being is, though, Rashford has lost his way at Manchester United. Maybe being the local kid has got on top of him. He's clearly got discipline issues as well. That needs to be ironed out. Things are not going well on and off the pitch at Manchester United. It's a bit of a chaotic circus. Clearly, the manager and him, I don't think they got on too well. But could you imagine a Marcus Rashford and Eddie Howe and the impact that Eddie Howe could have on his career? Look at what happened to Joe Linton again. for instance, turned him around when it looked like no one else could. Maybe Marcus Rashford just needs an arm around the shoulder, a manager who trusts him, and a manager who can work with him. And I genuinely do believe that Eddie Howe, working with Marcus Rashford, you would see him break into that 100 club within a season and a half quite easily.
Not having it.
Not even right. You're not having.
I don't know. Let's just say it was realistic, and Man United were going to sell him, and Newcastle could get him. Great finisher. I just don't think he's an Eddie Howe player. I don't think he's got the work rate.
But that's the downside.
He strolls about the pitch in that Man United team because
Yes.
he's got the life of luxury. I don't think he puts the graft in. I think he's played so many games at a young age that he just looks
He's been out.
wrecked now, doesn't he?
I agree about his style. He doesn't. He wouldn't fit in that pressing nature of Howe's team. But it's more just to compliment Eddie Howe's man management. That was the point I was trying to get.
Yeah, I get that. If I'm honest, that really, really struggled, and I've probably had to go down a similar route to you, but with a different player who lost his way. And I don't, is it realistic? I don't know. Do I really want him? I don't know. Sancho, it's the only one I come up with.
Yeah, but he's not having the best time in Dortmund, is he, at the moment?
It's generally the only one I can think of, because I think all the players I would actually want are just unrealistic, and I think the ones that are realistic, I wouldn't want.
And Sancho would benefit from the arm around the shoulder.
Exactly, and look, there's definitely a talent there, but look, the wages would be a stumbling block, and yeah, I don't think it's really realistic. Might not seem realistic on the face of it, but Rafa Varane's out of contract in the summer.
Oh, there you go. A little cheeky free transfer.
And he would definitely be one I would take. So,
Nottingham Forest. And I do think Forest have got a real talented squad.
Yeah.
But I think there's only one man. Oh, you're not sure?
Well, I don't know. You go first.
Morgan Gibbs-White.
Oh, no, I've gone for a different shout.
Really? I thought you would have.
This was pretty much the first player on my sheet as well.
From Nottingham Forest?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, go on then.
I've got Murillo, the centre-back.
Who, by the way, I just realised because we were talking about this, I was talking about this yesterday with the group of dads at this first birthday party while the Century Class was going on. We were talking about Murillo. He's only 21. He genuinely looks like he's been selling the Chronicle on the corner of Phoenix for about 30 years. He looks old.
Yeah, he does.
Talented player, though.
Looks very good. He's a little bit of a maverick. I think, people like you, and I've got a couple of friends who really hate when Bruno messes about with it on the edge of the box. I think Maria would probably give you those heart issues, but I mean, if you want a player who is the reincarnation of Fabian Schär, I mean, he just absolutely loves going forward with the ball. He's got goal in him. As you say, he's 21. He's slotted into this team, Forest, ridiculous this season.
Newcastle have been linked, haven't they?
The only issue, I think, is that everybody's been linked with him, and I think Newcastle would have. If he was available and Forest go down, I think we'll see Muriel with a big team next season. I just don't know whether it be Newcastle, but I would love him. I think he's been absolutely fantastic.
Morgan Gibbs-White for me. I think he's so talented. And I'll be honest, when he first signed from Wolves for 40 million, I was questioning and thinking, what on earth have they just done there? But he's just coming to his own. He looks so at home in the Premier League. He's got everything about him, like everything. Pacey, good control, can score a goal, gets his foot in. He's passionate as well. He's strong. Honestly, he's my number one target for the summer. I think he's absolutely brilliant.
Costs a lot of money though, wouldn't he?
He would do, but look, they could get relegated. They could be hit with financial fair play issues again. They're going to have to sell. Even if they don't go down, they're going to have to sell. So why not Morgan Gibbs-White?
Yeah, good shout. Yeah, not against it. Just a couple of honourable mentions, especially if Forest go down. I like Montiel, the defender, and I also think Awoniyi.
He looks good, doesn't he?
He's a good player. He'd be a good backup striker.
And
I like Alanga as well.
Alanga.
Forest are one of those. Forest and Bournemouth are those teams where you look at them and think, "Well, I'd actually like."
You could see the top six kind of picking off them individual talented players and slotting
they've
them
got a
in.
really good squad. Forest. They shouldn't be as low as they
Could
are.
you imagine Alanga in this Man United squad?
Yeah, that's a good show.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I think Alanga and the chat up front has been. He just looks strong. He looks like a proper good old fashioned striker, doesn't he? And we spoke about this actually. I think when he had a storm against Newcastle back in December, I think he'd be perfect here.
Yeah, he looks good, doesn't he?
And he offers a little bit different to Isak, I think, which is really important. But yeah, some really talented players at Forest, but Morgan Gibbs-White for me, my number one. Admittedly, they'd want at least 40 million to secure him, so it wouldn't be cheap.
And the rest.
Sheffield United.
Honestly, I feel like we should just skip this one.
Well, I've gone for Vinicius Souza, just simply because he has been linked to Newcastle in the last month, where
Okay.
apparently he's been offered, cost Sheffield United 10 million. He's been offered for 10 million, a Brazilian midfielder, 24 years of age. I think he's only played 24, 25 times this season. I haven't seen too much of him, to be honest, but again, it was a struggle, and it was just because I'd seen those reports that I put him down. That's the only reason.
Yeah, the one I put down was Brereton Diaz.
Sorry, what?
Ben Brereton Diaz.
I know he is, but why?
Yeah, no, I think he is a good player, and I think he's the standout in that team. But again, I just think it's not the most exciting.
That might be the worst call of this entire podcast.
Really? No, I think he's underrated.
How many goals has he scored?
Well, I mean, come on, he's playing for Sheffield United.
Tottenham genuinely just haven't written anyone down.
Yeah, neither have I. I mean, I love lots of Tottenham squad. I've got written down here: Porro, Van der Ven, and Doggy, Richarlison. I would love Richarlison and Son.
Richard, bad apple in the dressing room.
I like Richarlison, but obviously all of them are unrealistic. The only one I've wrote down, but I've got a big question mark next to it, is Basuma.
Nah,
not realistic.
I think they're going to try and build a team around him like Madison.
Good,
I mean, he's had a bad season, hasn't he? Really, or indifferent, shall we say?
I haven't got anyone.
I haven't got anyone written down because there's no one from a realistic angle which I think could improve the squad. I mean, Højlberg maybe, who you spoke about back in January, but he's not going to get in ahead of Bruno or Joelinton. So yeah, I've just left a space there because there's no one there. West Ham didn't even need to think about this one, and people will say, "Well, this is not going to be realistic." But I think David Moyes leaves in the summer. West Ham continue this free fall. I think Jared Bowen you could get 19 goals this season. There's a story about him being at Wetherby, waiting for the call to come up here, but Mike Ashley wouldn't give Steve Bruce the player he wanted. I absolutely love him. Not realistic.
No, I had him written down, but I just don't think it's realistic. I also had Lucas Paqueta written down, but I just think
it's
that's
the
probably
dream.
Even more.
Like, can you imagine Bruno picking up the phone and saying, "Where Big Joe's stopping? Why don't you come up? There's a lovely school around the corner picked for you."
I think if I had a free pick at any West Ham player, it would be Paqueta. I think he generally is ridiculous, but also love Bowen. I just don't think they're realistic. I'm looking through their squad now. Alvarez would have been such a good signing when he joined West Ham last summer. I love Kudus, but again, it's not really.
We got your man there, the one loan from Manchester City.
No,
who's that?
Who that was?
Is that the man that should have signed in January, Aaron?
I tell you who I do like. Nayef Aguerd, the Algerian centre back. He's very good. Look, Bowen, Paqueta are the two, aren't they? But I think Lucas Paqueta's got. I think the release score was 85 million. City look like they're nailed on to sign him. But that would be the dream, wouldn't it? A midfield three of Joelinton, Paqueta, and Bruno.
You'd be watching the international games through your hands, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would be. Yeah.
Wolves. I think it's no secret to listeners of this podcast that we like Wolves a little bit, don't we?
Yeah.
And we could have had 4 players maybe named here.
Yeah.
I've gone from Pedro Neto.
Okay.
Because I think the right wing is going to be a priority for Newcastle in the summer. I do think Miguel Miron probably will go. I can see him being sold. I think they'll want to bring in someone who is at least on the level of an Anthony Gordon. Jacob Murphy's not their great player, great servant, but he's not the level of Gordon. Still can do a job, but I think they'll want to bring someone who can really push Gordon for that place, because I'm assuming, in my humble opinion, Harvey Barnes will be the left winger. Hopefully he'll stay fit. Pedro Neto, though, absolutely brilliant. And he can alternate as well, which is a good thing. He's versatile. He'll definitely not be at Wolves come the start of next season. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And he'd be up there near the top of my list for this summer.
It would be a real statement signing this summer, wouldn't he? He's the one I've got written down. One negative, I think, is he just can't seem to shake off these hamstring injuries the last couple of months. And I know Wolves' squad is so small that they haven't really got many players to rotate from, but he's just got those little niggles. But if he can stay fit, he's a no-brainer. Second, I had written down was Hwang. I love Hwang. I think he would be above Cunha for me.
Really?
Yeah, I really like him.
Lerma in the middle?
Lamina.
Lamina,
Yeah,
sorry. Lamina.
Yeah, Lamina's okay. I don't think I'll be too excited by it. I love it, Nori, but I don't know how realistic it is.
I love him watching him just like wade through the defence. He came off the bench against Arsenal. Was it Arsenal? Who did Liverpool? Arsenal.
No, Arsenal, yeah.
And there was a couple of mazy little runs he made. It was
I tell you what, and look, he wouldn't be near the top of my list, but he's criminally underrated, and that was Craig Dawson. I know he's 33 years of age, but he's
Who's the other centre back alongside him? I like
Max Kilman.
I think he's decent. He's a very decent.
Wolves are another team. I mean, I'm looking at the squad here. Tommy Doyle, who was also at City, he's very
Gary
good.
O'Neill's done a fantastic job.
Yeah, he has. And I mean, I knew Newcastle have been hit by injuries, but Wolves have really been hit by injuries, and their squad is literally about 20 players deep. So,
Semedo as well is not a bad little shout. If you look
Neto
at
would be the
squad.
pick, but I think Hwang would be more realistic. But I think out of all, I'd want Neto.
There we go. Right, we've got Harpers in. We've got Minter coming back as well. Now, hopefully, a prospect. Obviously, he's won the cup over the weekend. Managed him to get himself sent off in the second half, but still enjoyed the celebration. So, congratulations to him. That has been the 19 other Premier League clubs and realistic transfer targets for this summer. I don't think anything will happen.
Yeah, but it was a good hour.
It's a little bit of fun.
And I cannot wait for the vehement apology that I demand of you on air when Newcastle signed John McGuinness.
Well, I can't wait for when they sign Elise and Eze. We'll finish quickly on a bit of trivia, real quick.
Yeah.
20 years to the day since Newcastle drew 0-0 with Marseille in the first leg of the UEFA Cup at St James's Park.
Why you were watching Drogba videos this morning?
I was watching the second leg, which will be next week. Can you name the starting 11 of that 0-0 tie?
So go through that again. So it was 2004.
2004, UEFA Cup semi-final first leg at St James's Park. It was 0-0 against Marseille, who had Barthez in goal and Habibi at right back.
Yeah. And
Drogba
big
front.
Drogba front. Right, so Shea Given in there.
Shea, yeah. Sorry, I'm coughing myself to death here. Shea Given
So this is the 03-04 season, yeah?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yep.
Was he centre back or right back?
Right back.
Right back. Woodgate?
Yeah. Look at this, this is a great start.
Yeah.
What have you done with Aaron Stokes?
We'll go Bernard left back.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of that other centre back in 2004. We'll go out the midfield. We'll go Solano.
No.
We'll go Dyer.
No.
We'll go Speed.
Started so well. Gary Speed's in the middle.
We'll go with Laurent Robert.
Yeah. I the right wing surprised me.
Darren Ambrose.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. Surprised us.
We'll go. So what? I'm missing another centre midfielder.
Yeah.
Genus.
No. Linked to the director role. Here.
Viona?
Yeah, Hugo Viona in the centre.
Yeah, he's playing in the centre. And we'll go for Shearer and Amiobi.
Yeah, so you got that centre back in mind?
Alongside Johnny Woodgate, it would be... See, the only one I think of is Titus Bramble. It's not Titus Bramble.
It's not Titus Bramble.
No, I can't think.
Andy O'Brien. There we have it. So that was the starting 11 from the 0-0 draw against Marseille 20 years ago. This very day. I remember being at that game thinking, wow, we're going to win this year. We're going to win. And then I remember being in the pub
and then you just
in the second leg and Didier Drogba breaking my heart.
In the pub? How old were you?
Well, you go when you're dad, you would watching the telly.
I forget you were an absolute pensioner, like, to be fair.
Bloody hell.
Is that your first pint, 2005?
Yes. What a moment. The defeat to Marseille, not the first pint. Right. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please share the episode amongst your Newcastle United supporting friends and family. Head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news. Get in touch via the EIBW podcast at reachplc.com or on Twitter, AD Musgrove or Aaron J. Stokes. We'll have the Get in the Bin episode tomorrow with me and Sam, as well as the match preview with Gibbo. And we'll have a view from the opposition as well on Wednesday morning ahead of Newcastle versus Crystal Palace. They're going to win that one?
Yeah, sure.
You don't
I'm
sound
not
too
sure, yeah. After watching Palace on Saturday, I'm not too sure.
Well, fingers crossed they can get another 3 points and pick up another win on the road to Europe. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you very soon.